Canada is cancelled. More specifically, Canada Day is cancelled in Victoria, BC. For non-Canadians, equivalent is like San Francisco has banned 4th of July celebrations this year, is your equivalent. So Canada is cancelled. Now, the logic they're using to cancel it is they're using the dead Indigenous children found at the Kamloops residential school, which no one is defending, as reasons to cancel Canada Day and justifications. Other people in the media who have been advocating for more cancellations or saying, here's some blah, 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 have also been throwing in the London attacks. This is the terrorist attack on Muslims in London, as reasons to cancel Canada Day celebrations. Now, this is absurd. A lot of people can make good arguments for not canceling Canada Day, so let's get deeper into it. This is the logical offshoot of what we've been screaming. I mean, you want to go back to the sort of statue debate, right? Victoria, BC taking down Sir John A. Macdonald statues, and then eventually it leads to canceling Canada Day. And you could say, oh, that's just right-wing fear-mongering. And no. The danger, what the left is pushing here, is that Canada is not worth celebrating. Canada is built on genocide. The reason Canada exists is because of genocide. The purpose of Canada was extortion and genocide, right? There is nothing good or redeemable about Canada. The fact that John Graves Simcoe is the first man to ever make a legitimate legislative attempt at the abolition of slavery in 1793 does not merit any celebration in Canada, because Canada was specifically designed for the intents of murder and exploitation, and there is no room for the great narrative that is the cooperation between French and English and Indigenous at a time, the betrayal, the infighting, the amalgamation of new sects, places where people could leave Europe and then get over the growing pains where, yes, Irish were discriminated here when they got to Canada, so were Scottish, but it was less so in Europe. That doesn't mitigate any of the suffering there, but it was the land where people came together, clashed, and as these things bore out over the decades, things got better. And things got better because there is something philosophically valid in the foundation of Canada. And we celebrate that on Canada Day, and it is a means of national unity. And the left wants to strip that from us, because the left wants to set out the narrative that everything in this country is corrupted, must be burned down and rebuilt in their image, and don't worry, they have this brand new idea. Yes, the idea has been tried multiple times before, failed with a 100% spectacular failure rate, but don't worry, this time it will work because we've added some sort of intersectional language to it. I don't believe that. So here's the real danger, is I am so saddened for everything that has happened to the Indigenous community because of the discovery of the Indigenous children. Now, I made the argument that we should have known this. This isn't really new information. This has always sort of been the narrative from the outset, and kind of what we implicitly understood in the residential school system is that they were, serial abusers of human rights, and then, didn't really care for the regard of Indigenous children, and then, not to lighten it, but the attrition rate, is at least 215 over 100 years, or 50 to 100, however we want to say it, which is horrendously high for a school. And this is just one of many across the country. That is a sin of our past. This isn't to say Canada's perfect. But the implicit logic is that Canada was designed for white people in this, and it is not for Muslims, and it is not for Indigenous. That's what the argument people are making. And this terrifies me, because this is the logic that any anti-Indigenous person would use. It would say Canada is a white country for the white man, and X, Y, and Z don't deserve rights. This is exactly what the left is saying. Canada is a white country, and that's bad, right? And because of it, we must punish the whites. It's just they have the exact same philosophy and logic. They just draw opposite conclusions. Now, the logic's pretty bad, so I don't really respect the logic of the white supremacists or the critical race theorists at this point anyway. But you get what I'm saying. But moreover, what this does is this radical, nonsensical attempt to cancel Canada, right? To undermine it fully, and then using the Indigenous people to do so. And the people who are using this are the left. They're not the Indigenous. And this is basically, if I can make a plea to the Indigenous people, don't you not trust the white man by now? The political left doesn't care about you. Doesn't care about Jews. Doesn't care about blacks. Definitely doesn't care about the Indigenous. You know you're going to be tossed aside the second you're not politically useful. So yeah, maybe they'll get you up there to say Canada is racist and I don't like it, and it's canceled. I'm going to be patting back for that. But if you modify, if you say, oh, you know what, I've actually found reconciliation here. I found some reconciliation. I found a way to move forward. with my neighbors. I'm happy. You'll be cast aside and you'll be ostracized, and then you'll be attacked because now you're a liability. That's how the political machine works. I don't think I'm explaining anything new to the indigenous people, that the second you're not useful to a political party, they will cast you aside because the promises mean nothing. Think of all those environmental groups you've led into your reserves over the years, who helped you fight down and shut down projects. Then up and leave your communities to poverty and disrepair. No. So I'm sad that they'll be used as sort of the human shields for, all the reasonable arguments. I'm not going to go over here for 20 minutes of all the arguments why you shouldn't cancel Canada Day. But what the left will be doing is using the shield of indigenous suffering as a cudgel against anyone who speaks up in Canada Day. And then this will, in turn, inspire more people to direct their ire for attacks on them at the indigenous community, which isn't warranted. And this is another reason why I've fought so vehemently hard against the left in these last days, because I noticed this in university, and this is with the BIPOC thing, and I'm going to make another video about this on the new pride flag and how it totally represents this idea. But one thing I've noticed is, isn't it curious how, Black, Indigenous, and LGBT get so lumped together? Your histories aren't the same. We all know this. I'm not telling a Black person anything new to say your history is unique. It's different than the history of gays in America. There might be some similarities. You might have some similarities with Jews. You might have some similarity with the Indigenous. But you're all different people with different cultures. And that's fine. That's great. Do you notice that there's something odd in the left when they try and tell us that the BIPOCs, the LGBTQ plus BIPOCs, lump them all into one group, put them all under one flag, say all have one similar narrative in history? Because the type of indigenous history I learned in university didn't have anything to do with indigenous people. It was just the radical left. So that's what this is again. This is the radical left. This is not indigenous people. I'm not going to dismiss indigenous suffering and say, yeah, suck it up on the residential schools. That's not what I'm doing. What I'm saying is, this push to destructuralize, tear down, dismantle, decolonize, this isn't anyone Black or indigenous. This is a political machine. And don't give it the credence of saying, no, that's actually what these people think, the Micmac or the Iroquois or the Huron. Because any real study of indigenous history knows that the story of indigenous history is they're not united either. They're the First Nations, plural, not nation. The Micmac were different than the Ojibwe. The Algonquin and the Iroquois were in a massive war before we got here. All these different tribes and colonies have completely different histories, aspirations, structures. The natives in the East are nothing like the natives in the West. But when it comes to things that support the radical left's ideology, it turns out they're just the same. All the indigenous are the same. They're exactly like the blacks and the gays and the Muslims. Roll them all together. It's all the same. And funny enough, the answer is always dismantle, burn down the system, and bring about utopia. It seems to be what all the BIPOCs, the queer plus BIPOCs, seem to want. Seems to be their history, if you don't study into their history and instead just take Colhan and Jones's version of history. So this is where we're out of country. This is the cycle we're going to get into. And I don't admire Justin Trudeau's role here. Before I criticize Justin Trudeau here, I'm going to give him the few weeks before Canada Day to say something of value. I know you're all laughing right now, and I am into it too. But this is Justin Trudeau's, one of his greatest challenges as a leader. How can he bring apart Canada Day and sort of bring down these tensions and restore our country and unify? Because it's on him. He's not a unifier. Not a unifier at all. But it is his job to unify the country in this moment and explain that there is a legitimate foundation on which we stand. Because if you cannot get that message across that the foundation is legitimate, then the people will tear it down and send the country into chaos. And that's not going to be good. Especially with the hyperinflation and all the crazy spending we have. Okay, I'm gonna have to stop this rant too. I'm gonna end this video and then I'm gonna rant in my apartment by myself about inflation. See you tomorrow.